Hey, good people, welcome back to the channel. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Today I'm giving you my review on The Real Housewives of Potomac Season 8 Reunion Part 3. Let's jump right into this reunion. So Gordon starts the episode off revealing that he has been diagnosed recently, or within the last 2 years, with bipolar disorder. And this would really explain his erratic behavior that earlier in part 2 of the reunion, Wendy and Candace were talking about. This makes total sense. Even what we saw with Gordon and Mia during the season finale. Yes, he seemed angry, but he also seemed different than how we have seen him previously. So it makes total sense. Kudos to Gordon for having the courage to share this. I often wonder when these people do these shows, like how difficult it must be to really open up and share something as serious as what he's going through. And, especially within the Black community, the stigma that's attached to mental health still to this day, believe it or not, is crazy. So for him to come out and say, this is what I'm going through, thankfully, he also mentioned that he has it under control, it's amazing to see that. And I applaud him, especially because he also is a man of a particular age. And I'm sure his generation for sure did not believe that you should be putting all of that stuff out there. So again, kudos to Gordon. I cannot celebrate Gordon without celebrating Mia. And she doesn't get a lot of props on the show. We all know why. As Candace likes to say, Mia be lying. But kudos to Mia because during this time, Gordon says that she stuck by his side. He actually was hospitalized, and there was only one day that he was in the hospital that Mia did not come and see about him. So I think Mia in this moment represents in part the true definition of a wife. I think, yes, a lot of us might think that she got married to him because of what he could offer her, but it's in these times when you're going through something like he went through, you really know how somebody feels about you. So the fact that Mia was there to support him and be by his side, I think that's so beautiful. And I have to give her her respect for that because at this point in time, with him not being CEO of his company anymore and allegedly losing all of the money that he has lost, that he claims he has lost, we would think, if you asked me without him even saying that, I would think, oh, heck no, Mia was nowhere to be found, but she was right there by his side. And I think that's beautiful. I also think that that speaks to why he's at a better place with her relationship with her new boyfriend. I think he just can appreciate the fact that she stuck by him because there's not many women that would do that. One of the things that I found interesting that he said is that had he had not been diagnosed with this, if this was not a part of his life, he feels like he and Mia would still be married. Now, up until that point, I was with Gordon, but when he said that, I was like, oh no, 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 no. I definitely think that she was going to find this man that she's with now because they were high school sweethearts and stuff like that. And I really do believe, just listening to her story, that's probably to her soulmate. I do believe that at some point that they would find their way back to each other, which is what we're seeing now. To be quite honest, I can't even be mad at that relationship that Mia's having with that man. We know that in Gordon and Mia's marriage, they had an arrangement. Yes, she did kind of break the arrangement a little bit, but I think he was a willing participant to let his wife do what she's doing and be happy doing it. So kudos to her. The one thing that I wish they honestly would have covered that they did not when Gordon was out there is what he feels about his son and whether or not he feels like this is his son or this is the other man's son. I don't think they covered that in part 2, so that's definitely one of the things that I was hoping they would talk about, but we did not get that, so let's move right along. Let's talk about Ashley's package because Ashley's package just kind of came and went. Much like Robin and Giselle's, it was just like here and then it's not here. So Ashley revealed that she rubs her husband's feet, Michael Darby, every night. And the funny thing about that is that she tried to backtrack when Andy was like, say what? She tried to backtrack and make it seem like, no, I said I used to, or what did she say? She said, I massaged, meaning past tense, his feet every night. And I'm like, Ashley, that is not what you said. They have played this particular clip on social media several times. And each time you said it, girl, you said you massage this man's feet every night. And I'm kind of chuckling to myself right now, just thinking of Karen's response to hearing that. Her response was hilarious to me. But the fact that she tried to make it seem like, no, I used to do that. We don't have that relationship anymore. And now we have a contentious situation. I don't believe that. Andy, I feel like, is completely disassociating himself from these women. I don't think he really cares about this reunion. For him, it's like, let me do what I have to do and get out of here. And in the midst of him having that type of attitude, he failed to ask Ashley a question that I'm sure we're all asking. Why is it right now that you and Michael have a contentious relationship? Like, why? Is it because you did the show and he didn't want you to do the show? Like, what is it? I need to know to make your story, to make the story that you're trying to present to us make sense. And I feel like that was a question that Andy should have asked that he did not ask. So I mean, I guess we'll never know. But she claims right now they're in a contentious place. Before they shot the season, they were in a good place, and now they're not. So that's a part of the reason that she gave as to why this divorce is not finalized. And like, I can understand that being an excuse as to why your divorce is not finalized. But if we're just going by what you say, if you were in a good place with Michael, at that time, why did you not go through with the divorce? And her answer is kind of like, well, because we were in a good place, we didn't need, she wasn't thinking about divorce. Girl, if you don't want to be with him and you're saying, because she sat up there and said, I will get married again one day. If you're saying that, then proceed with the divorce filing. For me, I feel like she's holding it back because she really does not want to divorce him. She is completely dependent upon him financially. And I think really that's probably the only thing that keeps her in that relationship with him is the financial hold that he has on her. And as I'm talking about it, I also feel like because he is kind of like a father figure in a weird way to her. And that's something that she talked about before with the dynamic of their relationship. So it might also have something to do with that. Which, I mean, I could kind of understand to a certain extent, but at the same time, you should not let that impede on your happiness. If you want to move on and be with somebody else, girl, move on and be with somebody else. And I just also feel like you have been on this show for 8 years. Within the 8 years that you've been on this show, I hope, and I think it's evident that that's not been the case with her. But girl, you should have been stacking your money, especially if he was financing your lifestyle like you make it seem. You should have been stacking your money and getting yourself in a position that if something were to happen in your marriage, you have a way to still sustain the lifestyle that you have, or at least come close. She has these 2 kids by him, and her concern, really, if you ask me, is not only is he gonna, I don't even think it's a concern for her whether or not he's going to take care of his children, because from what we've seen and what we've heard from her, he takes care of his children. So I think her concern is more so, is he still going to be taking care of me? And I mean, again, you've been on this show for 8 years, so how come you haven't put yourself now, especially within the last 3 years, in a position where you don't have to worry about that? You don't have to depend on him. Remember, they got the house, I think, is in his name or in both of their names. It's really a crazy situation that she has set up with him. And I think it's a situation that obviously does not benefit her. So I hope, wish, and pray that this GNA brand that she and Giselle have will be something that helps her. Obviously, we have seen that it doesn't look like it's going to be, but I would hope that she would be able to do something to get herself out of that situation to where she's not depending on him for her every need. We also see the package with Wendy. We know that she's had her candle. Shout out to her because the candle is still successful. Okay. Andy tried to play her, production, whomever, they tried to play her about that, but she said every day she is selling that candle. So kudos to her about that. She mentioned a little bit about the YouTube channel. She thought it was going to be a lot easier than what it was. I would have liked to have heard more about that, especially because that's something that she ventured out doing. We saw a little bit of it on the show, but then again, at the reunion, we heard nothing about it. One thing I can say about Wendy and her husband from part two of the reunion is that happy Eddie line is doing really good. So maybe she should really invest her time more in that, even though it's his thing. Girl, if he wasn't on the show because of you, he wouldn't have that. So maybe invest more of your time and effort into that. Maybe take that and do something on your own as well. I don't know. I'm just trying to give her some tips, you know what I'm saying? But one thing I can appreciate about Wendy is that she's not afraid to try things and she's not afraid to fail. Like, she's very successful if you look at her resume and what she's been able to accomplish, the degrees that she has. She is a professor and all of that. Dr. Wendy, get it right. She is all of that, but she's not afraid to try, and she's not afraid to fail. So I respect that, and that's one of the things that I actually enjoy seeing her on the show try to do, build certain things. And unlike Ashley, she really has tried to use this platform to elevate herself. So she definitely is going about it the right way. No matter how many times she's failed, I think that she is going to find something that makes her even more successful. It's just a matter of trial and error. And the fact that she does not give up and she keeps going for it, much respect to her. So they also talk about NECA during this part. It took us 3 episodes to get to NECA's package. Ooh, that's how you know, girl, the likelihood of you coming back is a no-go. And I think the writing is on the wall. If you're a housewife and you're considering coming on this show, don't make the mistake that we see NECA make. Don't make this mistake that we saw Anne Marie make on what was it, Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Come on the show with a different angle. When NECA came on the show, obviously her biggest thing was the beef that she was stirring up between herself and Wendy. And that came to bite her in the butt. She's no longer a part of the franchise, and she really gave us nothing. I think the little interaction that she had with Andy after her package was revealed, she talks about the fact that she actually grew up in Wisconsin. That's something that, if you ask me where did NECA grow up, I would not even be able to tell you. That's how little we've learned from her being on the show. And I feel like, again, this was another missed opportunity, because there were things that we saw on the show that I would love to hear, not only what her response would be, but also what her husband Ike's response would be, in particular to a lot of people feeling like she degrades him or, kind of is very dismissive towards him. I would have loved to have heard what he had to say. Now that I'm dipping back a little bit into reunion part 2, I found it very interesting. We did not hear anything from Ray, did not hear anything from Ike. Obviously, Juan was not there. Michael was not there. Giselle doesn't have anybody. We heard mostly from Chris. So I'm just sitting here like, why were the rest of the men out there? Can somebody help me understand? Like, were they just there to be behind their wife? Because they had absolutely nothing to say. But as I said before, I would have loved to have heard what Ike's perspective was, not just about people saying that his wife talks down to him, but also what he felt about that whole appointment they had with that doctor, who kind of was not taking NECA's concerns seriously. From a physician standpoint, I would have loved to have heard what he had to say now looking back at the show. And also from a husband standpoint, I would have loved to have heard what he had to say. But again, they did not show anything about that. I don't know if it was axed and it just did not air. I'm not sure. Obviously, NECA's major storyline was the beef that she had with Wendy. They really don't even go too much into that. Andy gives a disclaimer, which lets you know that this is a very touchy topic. I don't feel like Bravo wanted to deal with this topic at all, and we can kind of see that just by how fast it went. I was really hoping that they would delve a little bit more into it. From Wendy's side of things, what I've been hearing a lot of on social media from Nigerians saying that NECA should never have brought something like this on the show, the stigma attached to it, how it's not culturally accepted and things of that nature, how it's not something that you talk about. I wanted to hear that directly from Wendy in the way that only Wendy could present it to us. It was another missed opportunity for us to hear her argument as it related to that. I thought it was funny though that when Andy brought up the whole Osu thing and wanted Wendy to explain it, Wendy threw the ball over to Ashley's court and was like, "You handle this since you brought it up on the show." I was like, "I know that's right, Wendy." And that's another thing. I really wanted to know a little bit more about what Wendy felt as far as Ashley bringing that up and Ashley really stirring the pot between her and NECA. Let's not, that's not to say that NECA is not problematic and all of the things that she did, calling Wendy's mom a witch and all this stuff wasn't, and all of that stuff was not problematic. But I wanted to see Wendy really put Ashley's feet to the fire and get a little bit deeper into that part. But again, I mean, I guess this might as well be a review of missed opportunities. We did not get that. So when Wendy throws it over to Ashley, Ashley is like, it's like the Beyonce concert. Everybody on mute. Ashley had nothing to say. And I'm just like, girl, really? You were not prepared to answer this question? So she tried to play it off like, well, I don't really know. I didn't know how deep it was within their culture and this, that, and the third. And I'm sorry, that excuse that Ashley had, it just did not fly with me because you had to have known that it was not something good for you to bring it up because you're messy. You're messy as I don't know what. So the fact that you want to sit here and make it seem like you didn't know is BS to me. You might not have known the extent, but you certainly knew surface level how that would look for Wendy and her family. And yet you still decided to come on the show and do that. So girl, miss me with that. This was another thing that Andy kind of glossed over. After that point, they went right into this fight between Deborah and this assault on Candace and Kay, I guess you could say. Kay comes out there and I like Kay and I hope that she gets to be on the show as a full-time cast member next year because I really want to get to know her and see what she's really about. What I've seen of her thus far, I approve of. I think that she was able to fit in real nicely with the girls. I found it interesting that when Andy asked her, kind of like, who did you bond with or who are you cool with on the show? She, of course, mentioned Robin. She said she loves Karen. No surprise there. Candace, Wendy, of course, she mentioned Giselle. She had nothing to say about NECA and nothing to say about Ashley in particular. Crickets when it came to Ashley. Didn't even utter her name. I thought that was real interesting and that says a lot. I feel like she feels Ashley put Deborah up to the whole situation between Candace and Deborah. I really do feel that way and I agree with her. I think that Ashley did orchestrate that situation. She did not orchestrate it to be violent, but she certainly orchestrated it for Deborah to have a moment. Kay gives her perspective as to what happened. And I think that we should really pay attention to what she says because she was right there with Candace. Her interpretation was that Deborah was being very aggressive towards Candace and she was actually looking for a fight. I found it also interesting that Mia co-signed this because Mia said earlier at the event, Deborah too came up to her and was like, so you called me a 4, which is what Mia called her last year. And Mia was like, no, we're all, we're good. We're all 10s, whatever. She tried to just like calm her down a little bit. So that lets you know that Deborah really was on some, what. This is not something that's fabricated from Candace or fabricated from anybody else. This is something that in fact happened. And hearing that, you would think when Giselle was asked the question of who she thought was at fault, she would have taken that into account. But no. What did she do? She said, Wendy, Candace, and Deborah are all at fault. And I thought that was very interesting because I'm like, girl, so Ashley gets no blame at all? She's fine? Really? That's why Giselle's getting eaten up on social media right now because she just can't, for the life of her, she cannot be just honest and just really call a spade a spade. If she doesn't like you, she's not going to root for you. She's not going to say that you were right, even though it's clear as day you were right. She's not going to say that you weren't involved, even though it was clear Wendy was not involved. It took Mia to chime in and say to her, no, Wendy was not involved in the situation before she would even acknowledge that Wendy had nothing to do with it. And she didn't acknowledge it because she really believes it. She acknowledged it because she could not dispute what Mia saw herself, especially because her and Mia are close on the cast. Okay. So she didn't want to go back and forth with Mia about the facts. But those were the facts. So Kiana says Deborah was aggressive. Deborah threw a drink on Kay, and that made Kay react, punching her because Andy asked her why, I saw the video and you were throwing punches. That her account, she's the victim, so she has no horse in the race. Her account should be the end all be all as far as I'm concerned. Okay, because Deborah had to have done something for her to have her face split open like that. Kay did give Karen her props, which I appreciated. She said, Karen came and made sure that I was good. I think she rode with her to the hospital, and that's a beautiful thing. Like, I think that Karen is really the VIP of this season. When you think of her, she definitely was the glue to try to hold all of these girls together, and I'm going to talk about her in another video, but kudos to her because she did the best she could with what she had. Now, as Candace is trying to explain from her vantage point about what happened, I thought it was really rich that Mia was trying to give her a little lesson about, take the high road or don't say certain things to ruffle other people's feathers. You could have kind of just de-escalated the situation. I thought that was really interesting coming from Mia, being that she was the one last year who threw that drink in Wendy's face based upon Wendy saying certain things to her. Now, I don't think, in my opinion, somebody saying something to you should result in you getting beat up or you being attacked. I don't agree with that at all. I just think it's so funny that Mia was trying to chime in and make it seem like Candace should have kept her mouth shut. And we know Candace was not going to back down to what Mia was saying. She was like, no, she was in my face. Like, I have every right to say whatever I want to say because this girl was in my face. Deborah came looking for a fight. And that's another question that I wish Andy would have asked. Who believes that after seeing the footage and seeing how she was dressed and everything else, Deborah came there with the intent to have some type of physical altercation with Candace? I would have loved to have heard what each of those women had to say. I already know what Kay's response was going to be. I already know what Wendy's response was going to be. Ashley, we've already heard what her response is going to be. Ashley's position is she just thought that Deborah wanted to clear the air. Even if you thought that she wanted to clear the air, why would you think that at your event that would be the right time to do so? And even if she wanted to clear the air, how come you weren't a middleman between her and Candace when she was ready to clear the air? The reason is because, girl, you knew what she was going to do. Again, I don't believe that Ashley knew she was going to be violent, but I do believe that she knew she was really going to try to get at Candace. Why? Because she did not have a platform last year to say anything to Candace or to Wendy or to, give her side of things that happened last year. And as I said earlier, Mia already told us that she was holding on to what happened the year before when she was coming up to Mia talking about, so you think I'm a 4. That lets you know, girl, she was not there with any good intent. And I don't understand why they just can't say this is what it is. Why is it only 3 people or possibly 4 people saying, yeah, this is what it was, and everybody else is just like, no. As much homage as I've paid Karen already, even she was a little like, well, Candace, why did you have to call her this, that, and the third? It should not matter what came out of Candace's mouth. That does not equate to her being assaulted, point blank, and the period. Not to mention, I feel like Ashley was not held accountable for the part that she played. The whole asking if the cameras were down and all of that, girl, that seems very calculated. And for you to sit up here and make it seem like that wasn't the case, because she came out with some video talking about, no, we wanted to change the music, and that's why I was asking. I don't buy that, girl, because your history on the show says otherwise. You're very messy, and you wanted to see Candace get it. Verbally, not physically, but you definitely wanted to see her get it verbally. And it backfired in your face because you were not expecting people to pull out their phones and record what was happening. In today's world, you would think you would be a little bit more smarter than that. I'm also not really buying the fact that she and Deborah are no longer friends. I think they are friends. I think they still talk to each other. Maybe they're not right now as close as they used to be, but they're definitely not. Like Deborah, I think they're still friendly with each other, and they're probably just waiting more so Ashley than anything for the situation to really blow over after this season so that they can move forward with their friendship. Ashley owes Deborah. She owes Deborah. Okay, Deborah did her dirty work. She owes her big time. At the end of the day, this reunion to me, I feel like it was a lot of missed opportunities to do follow-up questions, not only with Ashley, but Giselle, Robin, literally everybody. You know, Andy really missed a lot of opportunities. I think like a lot of people feel like he just does not care. He wanted to get this reunion done so he can move on to the next thing. NECA came on there and she gave exactly what she gave during the season, absolutely much of nothing. You know, when you really take away the whole your mother has a shrine and all those things that she was saying, when you take all of that away, girl, we didn't learn much about you other than the fact that you're married to a traveling doctor and you guys are trying to have a baby. I did find it interesting that she mentioned, and this is a key thing, she mentioned that she was first called about Married to Medicine. And somebody told her, no, girl, because you and Wendy are both from the same, I believe, tribe, you should come over to the Real Housewives of Potomac. So she went with that. That makes me wonder, NECA, would you have moved to Georgia if you were given Married to Medicine? Because I feel like NECA is definitely that girl who, girl, if you say, let's go to California, we got a show for you here in California, she's going to go. We got a show for you here in New York, Ike, let's go. We got a show for you here in Chicago, Ike, let's go. She definitely seems like that type of girl. So I thought it was interesting, like I said, that she mentioned that. Seemed like she potentially was considering that, which means that she would not have even been in Potomac. Let that sink in. That shows you what her angle really was trying to come on the show. She's definitely a fan of the show and definitely was coming on the show to make something of herself, which is nothing wrong with that. It's just, girl, the way you came in, you could have came in totally different. We could have learned a lot more about your father, a lot more about your mother, your sister, your husband, everything. But you just completely went left. And I feel like when you come on a show like this and you're trying to spew this type of deep-rooted stuff, it's never going to end well for you. I would love to have heard this question asked to her. If you could do it all over again, would you have said anything, whether it's true or not, about Wendy's mom? I would have loved to have heard what her answer would have been to that question. So yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on this reunion. You guys drop some comments down below. Let me know what you thought. Thank you guys so much for sticking it out with me during this review, and I will see you in my next one. Bye-bye.